Okay, looks like we're live. Let
Boom.
me just go to my LinkedIn and get this started. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm here with Mr. John Marty. John, how's it going?
What's up, man? How's it going?
It's going well, my friend. I'm very glad we connected in the weird spider web of the internet way that we did.
I know, man. It's awesome to it is a LinkedIn spider web.
Yeah.
You know someone who knows someone and they're like, this dude is awesome, and you connect, and it's great, man. We had a great conversation last time. It's a good continuation, you know?
Yeah, and you're the one who gave me this idea where you were saying something like where you want to interview people about things that they're really good at and they want to help other people and you want to create this vast network. And I feel like a lot of people know you for like LinkedIn stuff, for career coaching stuff. And I feel like we were talking about this last time. Everyone's identity is associated with that one niche because that's what they say, right? Like niche down, niche down.
Yeah.
But there's so much more opportunity to explore other things that people are interested in, which is why I thought this might be a good idea. What do you think?
I think it's great. Let's do it.
Right? Now, last time, if you remember, we were talking about challenging times and how we overcome that.
Yeah.
And you started talking about Stoic philosophy. Now I don't want to go too deep too fast.
Yeah.
So if someone's watching this and they're like, well, okay, what the heck is Stoic philosophy? Now I know you know a lot more about this than I do. I'll let you do the introduction.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've really just been kind of getting into it as well. And I think a lot of the things that I've been thinking through over the past 6 years have all kind of culminated into trying to understand what is a philosophy of living a good life. And I didn't even understand that Stoic philosophy was a philosophy of living a good life until recently. And it's very much a lost art in our modern society. So when you think about, and we were talking about this, you and I were talking about this offline. It's like there is religion, and religion kind of gives you this moral framework, but a lot of the text is very outdated. It's not modernized, and so it's difficult to follow. Same with philosophy in general, right? It's these kind of waxings of philosophical topics that are very difficult for Western culture in 2020 to really pick up. And then school teaches you to have skills for specific jobs. But where do we learn how to live a good life? We just kind of have this assumption that a good life will come from getting a great job and getting into the system, right? But that's a very outdated mental model for our society. So hey, Jess, what's going on? So yeah, it's a really outdated mental model for our society because we can literally be anything we want to be in our society. And it does seem a little cliche. It's like, be whatever you want to be, but you literally can with these social media platforms that we have today. You can access any audience that you want. Right. So amazing things for you, for example, are happening behind the scenes. And those are some incredible things. And you would have never expected those things to come your way. Right. But they came your way because you have put yourself out into the world to be seen. So I think that's really the name of the game. But when it comes to trying to live a good life, it's like, well, what does it mean? It's like money buys me things and things make me happy. Right. But there's a massive void that people feel when they're chasing only that. They're not necessarily chasing a sense of meaning in their lives. Like, well, what is meaning? I don't even know. How do you express that in terms? Yeah, exactly, Jess. Like we place too much internal value, importance, identity on our careers, and that's another thing too. It's like we are constantly identifying with form, external things. So I am my career. I am my job title.
I'm my
right.
life.
I am my followers. I am my likes. Right. And when you start identifying with those things, the whole world comes crashing down very, very quickly when things go the wrong way. Right. You're setting expectations with everything we do. Right. Set an expectation. I need this best career. It needs to look this certain way. It needs to be this and that. And I need to plan everything. And then when it doesn't happen, then like everything comes crashing down. Right. And that's exactly what happened to me. But everything wound up coming crashing down in 2014 because I was like, well, who am I without my job title, without the things that I own, without my car? And I had a real existential crisis. And I think a lot of people in right now today are having an existential crisis as well, because many people are losing their jobs and they're going, oh my God, what do I do? I was this, right? I was this title. This was everything for me. And now I'm not. And the irony of it all is that many people hate their jobs, and yet they feel pride in expressing that they have that shit job that they hate at a barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Even though we can't go to barbecues anymore, but that's really fascinating to me. Why do we do that? Because the societal pull to have a connection to form is so strong. That form of monetary gain, the form of buying the nice car. It's unfortunate. And so, as interesting, he's like circling back to Stoic philosophy. It's like, as interesting, they're 2,000, 2,500 years ago, right? They didn't have cars. They didn't have the modern conveniences that we have, but yet they struggled with the exact same problems, right? Success, chasing gain, right? And then wrestling with, who are you without the things you own, right? What are the tactics to live a good life? What is the difference between happiness and gratification, pleasure and gratification, right? And there is a big distinction. We've lost it in Western society. The distinction is, we chase in Western society purely hedonic pleasure, right? So it is buy, dopamine, dopamine. Whereas gratification is very different. Gratification, at least from Stoic philosophy and positive psychology, is rooted in the chase of something that is connected to your strengths, right? I would go so far as saying it's connected to your personal story, and it's a struggle, right? You're struggling through a process, right? It has nothing to do with hedonic pleasure at all. And we've lost that.
What I'd like to know, and you talked about so many things there, one thing that really stuck out for me is how you mentioned that we've had these problems at every time of human civilization, right?
Yeah.
And yet now we are at a time where you take away someone's Wi-Fi and all of a sudden it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
How do you bring that into perspective for people about what their problems are relative to maybe what real problems should be like? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, problems come down to a sense of perspective. Everything comes down to a sense of perspective. And how do you gain perspective? Well, you gain perspective by thinking through, and you and I had talked about this before, right? You gain it by thinking through negative visualization, as Seneca or Stoic philosophy would recommend. And it's not something that we in Western society would necessarily be thinking through. The idea of visualizing negative or terrible things to happen to us or our family members is not best practice, right?
I shared that with a lot of people right after you and I had that conversation. I spoke to a friend about negative visualization, and she was up in arms about it. Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to visualize all the terrible things that could possibly happen? I follow this other person who says visualize your goals, visualize your dreams. So maybe you can explain that a little bit. Why does negative visualization work?
Yeah, so it's not just like you're constantly in this frame of negativity. You're actually just taking a pause and being really grateful for the things you have through negative visualization. If those things were taken away from you, how would you actually feel? If you died tomorrow, what would you feel if you were to come back to life? How grateful you would be to even have anything, to have a piece of bread, right? So it comes down to it's a pressure test against a society who now feels at all economic levels that a phone that has internet is a basic human need, right? It's part of our lives. And so it's we take everything for granted. It's really funny how, we take for granted that we have a TV, we take for granted that we have a couch, windows in a house to keep us warm during winter, that we're not living in friggin' tents, that we're not crapping in the streets. I mean, like, seriously, like, if you really think about these things, you go, man, it's a big deal. Imagine, if you will, all the complaints and things that you're dealing with today, and then you take somebody from another country who is living in absolute squalor.
Yeah.
They would be like, you literally have zero problems. Okay. I am the most joyous person in the world. I can turn on the faucet and my water is not turd brown. Right? Or like, seriously, so the negative visualization is something that you can do during moments. It's not even a meditation. It's not like a constant pondering. It's a reflection. And you're saying, wow, like, amazing. Okay. Amazing that I'm alive, that I have health, anything, right? Like, pure gratefulness for that. But then obviously there's visualization of your goals and other things. Of course, those are things that are important to do, but you never want to be stuck in the future.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be stuck today. Here is today. This is what I have today. I can make micro goals. I can make things happen, right? I can be excited about things in the future, but I'm not setting expectations, nor am I attaching the goals that I have to who I am. The goals I have are just goals. They're external things. If I make them, if they achieve them, they don't make me a different person, a better person. They're just goals.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a story, and it's a bit personal to me, but I think it's very relevant. So I'll share it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone, including my close friends, know this, but I had a brother who passed away when I was 15, and he was 12 at the time. And he was paralyzed most of his life. And just entirely, it was brain damage when he was born, right? So my dad at the time was very troubled by that. He was like, how am I going to help him? And he can't understand what's going around him. He doesn't have sensory perception. So he was traveling with my brother to different countries to look for some sort of a solution to find it. And he was telling me that every single time he was going to a new country and he would meet a new doctor, they would tell him, oh, we can't do this. We've never dealt with this before. And he would always lash out at people like, why is this happening to me? Why did God do this to my son and all that, right? His last stop was when he went to India. And I'm from Pakistan originally, so it's not back home where I'm from. It's the other side. So he went to all these rural places where you have herbal remedies and whatnot, all these non-traditional practices. And there, when he went there and he took my brother, he realized there were people from families much poorer than mine. People with 12, 15 kids in their family, with 2 of them conjoined twins, or some people who just couldn't get up in the morning and the parents had to pay for their food, their education. Well, not education, I guess. But so through that trip, the amount of perspective he got, he's like, I thought I had everything bad. I thought my situation was the worst. At least when I have my son, he looks around, he feels the sun and he laughs. He has a sense of his surroundings sometimes, but these people don't even have that. So I remember when he left and when he came back, there was a very distinct change in his outlook on life. And I couldn't really pinpoint it until he told me, he's like, your problems are only problematic when you don't have context to it. When you give context in the wider environment of the world, then you're like, you know what, my problems aren't really that big. I'm doing pretty well for myself. And I think that's something similar to what you were touching on with your story, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I mean, thanks for sharing that story, man. That's big, and it's a life perspective shifting thing that happened to you and your family. I mean, it is exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's difficult to do. It's not something that I'm perfect at. It's not something that I can be like, yes, I am the oracle of this topic, right? It's just something that I'm actively practicing because I'm always trying to get better.
How do you think people who are, say, they think they're having problems, you can't just go up to someone and say, hey, man, your problems aren't real, or hey, man, just stop thinking about your problems. What can they do in terms of either philosophy or actionable tasks to overcome that, or to understand the real way they're like how their problems fall into the rest of the world, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you and I were having this conversation before too. Like it winds up coming down to, you know, we have a comparison culture, Instagram culture,
Right.
everything winds up coming down to a sense of self-worth in society, right? So we're trying to be liked, right? So we buy things. Why? Why do you buy a Ferrari, right? Why do you buy a Mercedes Benz GL, whatever, you know, the biggest thing with the biggest rims? Why do you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, from a utility standpoint, it's absolutely no different than any other vehicle. It might have nicer seats and what have you, but it's like the same vehicle. You buy it so that you can show other people you are worthy of one thing, being loved.
Yeah.
And it's a really fascinating psychological thing when you think about it. And like, that's why we do these things. And if you recognize how much power things have over us, as soon as you have that conscious recognition of like, wow, these things have a lot of power over me, you start to say, well, that's silly. They don't need to have a lot of power over me, you know? And as soon as you recognize that everyone else is human just like you, everyone else is having the exact same emotions. Sometimes people see, you know, they look at me and they go, oh, you have all these followers or whatever. I'm like, dude, I live in a 1,000 square foot house. Okay. I have a wife and son. I put my pants on just like everybody else. The only difference between me and you is I'm writing on LinkedIn. That's it. I'm the same dude. I have the same mental blocks as everybody else. I'm no different. But sometimes people and celebrities are like a whole different ball game, right? They look at them and it's like there's this barrier. It's like they are somehow different than you or I, and it's not true. They are human, just like you or I. They deal with the same things. They go to coffee shops. They're having a frustrating meeting. They're dealing with crap at work. Everybody's the same. It is, and once you realize that, you see something on Instagram and you go, you know, I see that picture of perfection, but I know behind the scenes, they're just like me. They're just like you, right? And it starts kind of lowering the veil a bit, and you're saying, you know, that's okay. Like, and then it comes to like positive self-talk, because negativity starts kind of flowing in and you start saying like, I don't have what they have. Right. But it's the false barrier. Once again, it's a false barrier. I don't have what they have.
We were talking about that time with marketing companies and how well they create that gap between you feeling like your life isn't all the way up there, like you don't have enough to be happy about, and they create this desire for you to purchase new things so you be happy, right? I was reading some stat about how the average person watches or looks at 40 advertisements a day or something like that. I'm wondering, in a society where we're constantly bombarded with advertisements and marketing and all of that stuff, how do you plug out that need to want different things in life?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Knowing that you are enough makes you not want. So when you feel like you're enough, right, you don't need things. You don't want to buy things. Now, there are certain things you want to buy for utility, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Do I want a new MacBook? Do I want a camera to do and a microphone to do some of the podcast things I do? Sure. I love these things, right? But it's not like I'm buying this mic because it's my identity. I'm buying it because it's a piece of utility. It's just a thing. If I didn't have this thing or the camera or the computer tomorrow, I would just be John. Right. But because I've separated my identity from the things I own, and I've separated my identity from the goals that I have, I feel free. Right? I don't need those things. And so the veil comes down as soon as you say, we just recognize the things we chase are to find validation in a society that is purely driven by money. The more dollars I have in my bank account, the more I show, the more I will feel validated by people around me. And it's the recognition that it's silly. It is literally just the conscious recognition that it's silly, because we don't even have a conscious recognition of what we're chasing and why.
Yeah. So
As soon as we do it, so it's this endless cycle, subconscious, driven by marketing companies, driven by society, driven by school systems, our whole pre-programming, right? We have a program that's running. We don't even know it. And once you know it, then you go, wow, how stupid is this program? And you insert a new program, right?
Yeah, which is harder to do. Uninstall a program and reinstall a new one.
It is. It's hard. It's hard, but it literally just starts with, do the things that I'm trying to buy hold power over me, right? It's asking the right questions. And once you start asking, then you go, oh God, every time I want something, I realize why I'm trying to buy it. And it's that psychological break. It's breaking the pattern. And over time for me, it just became this thing where I'm like, I don't need it. I don't want it.
I also feel like people have got the word need and want mixed up quite a bit. It's and I never really understood, and I know we were talking about this last time, but I went on a 10-day meditation retreat with no technology, no reading, no writing, no eye contact, no social contact, in the middle of a forest in BC.
It sounds great.
Oh man, it was just completely removed from my 25 years of existence. I had never experienced anything like that. And I thought going in, my biggest challenge was going to be not being able to use my phone for 10 days. And holy crap, was I wrong. Like that's it, because when you wake up at 4:30, you have a meal at 6, you have another meal at 11, and that's it for the day.
Wow.
And then you just meditate up until 9 o'clock till you sleep, and you do it all over again 10 times.
Wow.
And when you are stuck in your head for 10 hours a day with nothing but the walls and the tree barks to distract you, there's a lot of thoughts that start coming out. And a lot of them aren't the nice ones. They're like, like, hey, Yas, remember in 4th grade where you said this to that person? Why'd you do that, bro? And they're like, dude, why am I thinking about this right now? And there was a quote, I forgot how it was, but it was like, a lot of man's problems comes from the inability to sit alone in a room. And I feel like for me, waking up in the morning now, I wake up, check my phone. From my phone, I go to my laptop on LinkedIn, and I work the whole day. From my LinkedIn, I go to my TV, I play my PS5, and I do that for a while up until I numb. I watch some YouTube videos, and I go to sleep. There's no time in there where I'm spending time in my own head, which I feel like could solve a lot of people's problems if they just did that for a bit. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I have. So, I mean, it's all part of the game. There's a game that's being played, whether it's your career game or whether it's your social media game or YouTube or whatever, right? And so you and I are active on social, and there's a game that's played there, right? Like, we have to keep technology on at all times, and so there's that element, and that can wind up being, mentally challenging, for sure. But I think that one thing that you can do to kind of get out of your own head is, so I'm not really into meditation necessarily. It's not like I'm against it. I just don't do it. But I like to practice kind of more of like a daily active meditation. And so what I'm trying to do is, it literally just comes down to breathing patterns, which is similar to meditation. There's a book by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's called You Are Here. Great book if you're trying to get out of your own head. And what it allows you to do is come up with a way of breathing. And while you're breathing in, you're saying in breath. While you're breathing out, you're saying out breath. In breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. And while you're doing that, you're kind of focusing in on, am I here? Am I here? Am I here? And sometimes you have to do it a handful of times because your mind is still wandering, right? You're in this kind of subconscious, like, that's why sometimes we drive our cars and we go like, how did we just get here? Like, I was just thinking about a whole bunch of shit and I made it here without actually knowing that I was even driving, right? Like, things like that happen, right? Like, you go about your day and you're kind of on autopilot, and that happens more and more as you get older because our brain is really good at optimizing for efficiency. So if you practice that daily and you find your mind wandering, you go in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath, and you go, am I here? Am I here? Am I here? And then you kind of get into that moment like, okay, I'm actually here. I'm actually present. And it's a way that helps me. So
how do you bring that in the context of, say someone is experiencing daily challenges, whether it's stress from work, whether it's personal problems? Because essentially what you're speaking about is being present in the moment, right? Which is very
yeah,
similar to what meditation allows you to do as well.
sure.
How does that fit into helping you not overcome, but deal with the daily challenges? How does being present help with that?
Yeah, so it's important to think about your goals, and it's important to think about which direction you're going. Um, but you can't live in that, right? You can't just be like, oh, well, if I'm here, right? Because we often use if then statements for everything.
Yeah.
If this, then I'll be happier, right? So it's a false assumption that somehow over the rainbow we will be happier, right? And that's why it's very important to separate goals and external things from who you are. This is the moment that I'm in right now. Appreciate this moment that I'm in right now. And every once in a while, ponder, there's a future goal out there, but whether I achieve it or not, no problem. I want to achieve it. If I do, awesome. If I don't, I appreciate the journey. That's it.
Yeah. What about all those influencers who are like, you got to have your goals set up every day. You got to grind till you're dead. And otherwise, none of this makes sense. What do you think about that kind of motivational
I
advice?
mean, look, some people need a serious kick in the ass,
Yeah.
right? Like they really do. They're not doing anything, and maybe somebody who's speaking in that way is going to resonate with the individual. Awesome, right? That's great. Set your goals, do those things, but still recognize that the goal is not you, right? I think that's really important. Chase the money, no problem. Chase the money. I'm in corporate. I chase the money. I play the game. I play the game all day long. Okay. I show up to the meetings. I work hard. Okay. I play the corporate game. I play the corporate ladder. Right. But I'm playing within the system, not to validate myself. I could give a shit where I work, what I do, whatever. I don't care. Okay. But I work hard. And in working hard, right, I do well in the system, but I'm trying to make money within the system so that one day I have the freedom from it. And it's very difficult to escape that velocity in Western society, right? Because most people, at least in my opinion, would do something totally different than what they're doing in their day jobs. Totally different, right?
Yeah.
So most people want to be uncaged birds, right? They're looking for freedom somehow. And what we've done in Western society is we've kind of packaged this idea of entrepreneurship as a lever of freedom. It's a thing that we can dream about somewhere on the horizon, even if we'll never get there. It's something we can think about that is freedom, right? And but 99% of the time, it's not freedom, right? It's just another job, right? You feel enslaved by their job, but if you have your own startup, you feel enslaved by your customers, and you're working 7 days a week, right? So, but if you didn't need money and you didn't need to make money, what would you do? You might read every day. You might ponder life. You might do yoga. You might garden all day. Who knows, right? But it would be likely different. And so I recognize that, and I'm playing in the system. I'm making the money because I want to try to escape that velocity. It's very, very difficult in Western society to try and to make enough money where you can feel true financial freedom to be an uncaged bird. And that's where I'm trying to go.
You can live that Ty Lopez lifestyle with Lamborghinis in your garage and all of that.
No, and what's funny? What's funny? I want financial freedom to not have any of that, right? I want financial freedom to live simply and just for the pure satisfaction of knowing I don't need a job, right? I don't need to worry about a paycheck. What do I want to do today? What I want to do is I want to read 5 hours of philosophy and maybe do a podcast, right? Like that's what I want to do, right? So fascinating things about life, right?
If you could make a living out of just reading philosophy and just be a thinker for a living, now
Be a
that would be a
thinker.
career, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting if you spend, because I was talking to Jess about this just yesterday, where she was asking me how many hours a day do you work, because I want to be efficient in my work. And it got me thinking, because I'm a sole business owner, what do I define as work? Like, where does my hour start? Because what I do is I help career coaches scale their business, have sales conversations.
Yeah.
I go through sales calls out of a hobby. I love it. I enjoy nothing more than doing that. So if you classified that as work, yes, it is. But I love doing that. If I'm in the shower, I've got some sort of a sales podcast on. I do that as a hobby.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, where do you draw the line between what work is, what your hobbies are? That's an interesting question as well. But a more important question I want to ask you is, when you were trying to live a stoic life, when you're trying to be someone who's, and my understanding of stoicism is just, regardless of what's going on in the environment, you're kind of at a certain state of life where you're not too bogged down, you're not too excited, right?
Yeah.
What can people start doing now, especially those who are very emotionally reactive, to not be so reactive to the challenge that they're experiencing? What's something actionable they can do?
So as far as actionable, when it comes to facing the challenge that they have, I mean, often the challenges of anxiety or depression that people are faced with are mainly driven because of our comparison culture, right? And they're driven because they are thinking, I am not enough yet. I do not have enough yet, right? And so when I get enough, I will then be, right? And it always comes down to if-then statements, like we were saying in the past. So if I can just separate myself from that topic, and whether it's actionable right away or not, you have to start at least thinking about it and separate yourself from, I'm enough. Like, I'm good. And sometimes we say, oh, we're not yet where we want to be. But that's a hedonic adaptation for us, right? So you get the promotion, you're in the new position, you're happy, everything's cool. You maybe level up your expenses. Now you need more money, right?
Yeah.
Now you need more again. Right? What's the next thing? Right? What's the next progression? So if you recognize, I'm always going to be chasing the next thing.
Yeah.
Right? So the actionable step is enjoy the moment that you're in and be super grateful for the moment you're in, right? Don't ponder the future every single day, because you're wasting time thinking about what you're not, as opposed to thinking about, you know what, when I'm in that position over there, I'm still going to be doing the same things I do today. I might drive a nicer car, but it's just a little literal material thing. And I'm not those things. And if you can just do that, man, it's life-changing. And I know it's not easy, right? It's not an easy process. This is like a 6-year process for me, really.
Yeah.
But it literally just starts with one little question, and then another, right? I'm in this moment. Be really grateful for the moment that you're in, right? Really be grateful for the journey that you're on, right? The fact that you're even alive, and then take it from there, you know?
I feel like this topic alone, we could just go into for like a 3-hour podcast. We should have had more time on our hands.
I know. We could go on forever.
This one, and we're going to have to do a part 2.
I know.
We've got 2 questions on here. I want to.
Yeah, sure.
We've got 10 minutes. Let's just try to get the first one. So a bit of a vague one, but I think it does open up a lot of opportunities for you. What's the biggest life lesson that you want to share?
I mean, the life lesson is biggest life lesson. You know, I think to not be afraid of failure,
right,
is probably one of the ones when I'm speaking to people. Every time that I'm speaking with somebody, it's always comes down to, but I'm afraid of doing this, right? I'm afraid of doing that. It's like, why are you afraid? What are you afraid of? Society has just made us afraid. And I don't know where that comes from, right? We're afraid of being, Jay Shetty says we're afraid of being perceived as starting at the bottom. So we want to try something new. We're afraid of starting at the bottom with something looking silly.
Yeah.
Somehow we get into the school system and we change our mind. So I think that would be the biggest one is to, yeah. What'd you say?
For me, that was what you just said, the school system. When I was growing up in my earlier days, I wasn't doing too well in school, and all the other kids were getting the A's and whatever, and I was like a B- student. And I think that really messed with my self-esteem because, the report card comes out, the family is celebrating with their kids, and I'm just in the corner just...
You're a failure.
Exactly.
Right? That's true. That's what school teaches you. You get a bad grade, you are a failure, right? Your identity, interestingly, is failure. So they place it on you. And you learn from a very early age that my identity is failure if I get a bad grade. And a bad grade is an external thing. It has nothing to do with who you are. Not at all. Maybe school just sucks. Maybe my teachers just sucked, right? Maybe what they're teaching you just blows. All right. Maybe I was staring out the window in 4th grade and my teacher was telling me to take ADD medication and brought my parents in. True story. Because I was not interested at all in what the hell was going on in school. Right. And you know what? I failed out of high school and I got the shittiest grades in the world in college. I barely made it through college and everything turned out just fine.
That's crazy.
So
school though.
I mean, right. Like it depends. It depends on your situation. But, I think school's a necessary evil in a society that believes in plaques.
Yeah.
They believe in logos, right? So since we're so driven by those external things, it's important to go to school. But school is not educating you. You can educate yourself. We just need the logo so that we can play the game. That's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, I feel like the most important lesson I got out of school was learning that 99% of what I was learning, I wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
And that was a great lesson for me because then I could just not focus on any of that. So for example, my first semester here in my MBA program, I failed the most basic accounting course, like just financial accounting. And for me, that was like after high school maths and accounting, college maths and accounting. And then when I finally did my master's and there was a accounting course and I failed, I was like, you know what? I'm done with this, man. I don't want to do this again. I completed courses afterward. Yeah, exactly. I just switched courses right away. But to answer Vinayak's question, for me, I have a quote that I live by. It's see things as they are, not as you would like them to be. And for me, as someone who's a very anxious person in general, I was always fixated on a fixed goal. Like if I was more confident, if I knew how to do this, once I know how to do this, once this happens, that happens, then I'll be happy. There were all these conditional things I had to enable me to be happy in life. The moment I let that go and say, hey, don't be attached to what you would like to happen, just accept things as they are. And in the meditation retreat, they compared it to cars going in traffic. So they said, instead of trying to control the traffics, just sit by on the pathway and just watch the cars go left and right.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like quite a breakthrough moment. So for my biggest lesson was definitely going to be that.
Yeah, that's great, man.
There is one last question I want to address. It's a bit of a long one, but Eli, awesome guy. Shout out to Eli. Not everyone is going to be at a point in their journey to grapple with the depth of awareness required to connect with perspectives being addressed. He's right. We were talking about this earlier on as well. This is likely due to ingrained traumatic experiences and learned behaviors, much like you just shared. Is it possible to catalyze this perspective shift in others as a coach, or do you feel that individuals need to go through personal experience that sparks these embers of enlightenment in their own time? Great question, Eli. What do you think?
So Eli, I absolutely think people should be educated on this. So in ancient society, in the kind of the era of Stoic philosophy, in the peak of that time, there were hundreds of schools dedicated just to learning how to live a good life. And so we never, it's fascinating, right? Like when you're 30 or 40 or 50, most people like just start kind of grappling with these massive questions when things start going wrong. Right? They only start grappling when it starts going wrong. So we don't get taught how to live life. We get taught skills in a job market, which I could learn on YouTube. Right? That is not valuable to me. Right? We are all very self-sufficient. What we need to learn is introspection and understanding, like what truly makes up a good life. And that's why Dos Santos, I forgot her first name, but she is the professor teaching basically how to live a good life, the definition of happiness, true happiness and fulfillment at Yale University. And is the most popular class in the history of Yale University. And it's kind of fascinating because Yale, you think, right? People, golden spoon, going to Yale, every opportunity possibly. Would they care about living a good life? They are the definition of on a path to good life. And yet, most popular class in history. So I think there's a massive gap in our society that needs to be filled through education that gives us even a taste of awareness of these questions.
I love his question about, is it possible to catalyze this perspective? Because for me, that's something that happened when I was working with a career coach, not so much in the context we're talking about, but realizing the depth of your issues, the depth of your challenges. So for me, my career coach helped me understand that I wasn't just struggling in terms of my job search. I was struggling with my self-esteem. I was associating my self-worth by, do I have a job? Because the truth is, I had invested in an undergraduate degree, a graduate degree, and I have like $80,000 of debt and no job to pay for it, right? So she helped me realize that you're carrying all this burden into your job search, which is why it's so frustrating for you. And Eli, to answer your question, my perspective, I would never have thought about that. I would never have connected those dots if my coach didn't ask me the right questions. So I think there's a good mix of the two. Like there has to be a certain element of you realizing it and also be available to take help from people.
I agree.
But at the same time, someone should be there to ask the right question to help you underline that. Is that right?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's an awesome tie off to it.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got about 3 minutes left.
Man.
In terms of people taking away from this live chat, and by the way, we'll have to do a part 2. I'm sorry, but there's too much to cover here. If someone is going through challenges right now, right, and they're like, okay, John, how do I apply Stoic philosophy to my life? Give me some basic pointers. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's going through challenges right now, it's important to just set aside time to explore these topics from books that have been published, that people long before you have pondered, right? It's as easy as doing a Google search and saying, I'm really unhappy right now. I'm facing this, how to overcome fear, how to do this, how to do that. You're going to find hundreds of thought leader books presently and thousands from the past, people who have come before us. It's funny how we often don't think that other people before us struggled with the same things we are struggling with right now. And yet everyone in history struggles with the exact same questions, right? So I think it's important to take time and ponder the questions, read books from people who have figured it out. And that really helps you say, this person faced the same thing. So you don't feel alone. And you're gaining the knowledge that they've had over a lifetime that they've pondered and put into a couple hundred pages. It's invaluable.
That's great advice. And I want to be even more specific with that. Last time you recommended me a book, which is on the way from Amazon. To arrive. What book or books do you recommend on the subject?
Oh man, guys, I have so many good ones.
There's a good one. That's a very good recommendation.
Meditations Marcus Aurelius is awesome. So Meditations from Marcus Aurelius is more of like short, short snippets. They're just basically journal entries from him. So it's difficult to kind of digest as like a whole book. You can kind of read them individually, but it's harder to kind of ponder. So I would say one really amazing book is A Guide to the Good Life by William Irvine. Nader was talking about Ryan Holiday's books, all of them. Yes, absolutely. Ryan Holiday is amazing. Another great book by Vishen Lakhiani, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. There is a book called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. Books by Thich Nhat Hanh are awesome. A lot of Brene Brown books. She's diving into the topics of like, self-worth and all of those topics. Very important.
I think, another one worth mentioning is Eckhart Tolle. He's got
Oh God, yeah. I've read. I think he's
Power
had
of Now is one of them,
Power
and
of Now. Great book. I read a really great book by Sadhguru. God, I can't think of the actual book that he wrote. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I like that title.
So yeah, that Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's like, whoa, what does that even mean? He goes pretty deep in that one. Oh man, I could go on and on of all the different books that I've read, and there's some pouring in the comments here. Success Principles by Jack Canfield. There's a lot of great ones, but whatever you're facing, read a book about it. And then if you're still having questions, read another one, right? Use your time outside of work to explore some of the big questions. We spend 1,800 hours a year in our careers, right?
Right.
We spend maybe 30 minutes, an hour in our lives actually asking the right questions. And that's the unfortunate problem that we have.
Another book on asking the right question is The Coaching Habit. I couldn't recommend it more.
That's
amazing,
awesome.
but it just asks questions so you outline these things. So
yeah,
John, thank you so much for being on here, man. It was an absolute pleasure. And guys, if you were watching this and you're enjoying this kind of off the record conversation, we're not talking about the algorithms, the resumes, or we can talk about that, but we're more fully fleshed out people. There's other interests we have. We'd love to talk about it. If you have recommendations on what you'd like us to talk about in the future, let me know in the comments. Or if you'd like to be on my live show as well, let me know in the future and we'll get something going. John, thank you so much for coming by, man.
Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate you. Take care.
Good night.
See you, man.